Audma HPA1 Maestro was introduced and debuted at Munich High-End 2024. I actually walked past this amplifier in the Meze booth. They had everything in there. And walking over to Spirit Torino, Andrea there said, you need to have a listen to this amplifier, and introduced me to this team. They said that we use this amplifier in our labs during the Valkyria testing and other introductions to their line. And that intrigued me because Andrea is an individual who tunes headphones because of its musicality, because of its instrument reproduction, rather than always concentrating on measurements for the internet crowd. So therefore, it creates a product that is highly loved by actual musicians, people who play instruments. I was intrigued by this. So with that, I contacted the team, had a chat with them in the Meze booth, and here we are. Audma HPA1 Maestro integrated amplifier DAC pre with their ELISA technology for review. Hi, I'm Koji CO. Welcome to ConvinceMeAudio at our new studio. Let's begin. The electronic engineer behind Audma is an individual who highly loves music. That's his passion, live reproduction of bands. And during our in-depth chat here at CMA, he came and visited us. We had a long talk about the philosophy behind the reproduction of music and equipment that corresponds to this in a highly realistic way. His problems with headphones were due to the fact that they are a right channel and left channel in isolation module listening experience. It doesn't reflect the real world of the two-channel world, where your right ear listening to the left speaker and vice versa is hearing things at a slight delay. But both of your ears are hearing the same thing, just with slightly different time alignments. And therefore, he developed the ELISA electronic component. The ELISA acronym stands for the Electronic Loudspeaker Imaging Simulating Amplifier. This feeds some of the signals from the left channel to the right and the right to the left in the digital domain to bring that cross-feed loudspeaker environment into your headphone listening experience, which we will discuss. You can switch it on and off here, but we are jumping ahead. So this was the brainchild behind this project, and then therefore the next component of this headphone amplifier would be the highest grade components to bring everything nicely together. And with that, let's do a unit tour. Let's take a quick look at the front panel of the unit together, starting right to left. We have a 4-pin XLR balanced headphone out here, a 6.3 jack with an adapter for 3.5 if you find that necessary, a 4.4 Pentacon. These outputs are compatible with 16 ohm headphones all the way up to 600, but I've tried IEMs on this with excellent results without any problems. And then we have a VU meter screen here and another one next to it in a couple of arches. A little tiny bit sharp around the edges, but here they are. And also they can be adjusted with a switch here. Above these slew of headphone outputs, we have a dual screen for the VU meters. Not only that, you can adjust the intensity with a switch here next to it. Very clicky, very, very tactile. The middle of the panel has a slew of buttons, knobs, and features. So this Alps Alpine motorized potentiometer is extremely weighty, beautifully textured, and actually feels very, very expensive, and fantastic left and right balance channel. They usually are. The Alps Alpine pots are usually incredible. I have another one here on the WA33 JPS Elite. They are exceptional, probably the best in the industry. I haven't come across any others that matches them. So thank you for putting that in here. That's a very, very good start. Then we have the ELISA controls, very tactile knobs, You can switch it on and off, and then these are the angles, 2 of them. You don't have to integrate the ELISA functionality into your hi-fi listening experience, but you would want to. We will discuss that in the sound section. Underneath this, we have the pre-output headphone, etc. knob that you can adjust. One thing here that does bother me, the knobs are very, very well tactiled. They are very well designed. It's just that they spin and rotate on a 300-degree axis, and unfortunately, I would like these to stop with the last menu and the first menu. This has already been pointed out to them, and in the next iteration, I hope they address it. Then we have a balanced left and right knob here, and also a couple of knobs that are very intriguing on this amp. One switches the amp to mono mode. The next one is the phase knob, 180 plus or minus. I haven't found any use for this personally. It's designed so that you can integrate it with the ELISA controls so that you get more fine tuning when you start widening the sound stage and shrinking it. But in my experience, I found it to be redundant, but we will discuss that in the sound section. And then finally, we have the input knob, Mania. These go from USB 32-bit 768K, DSD 256, optical and coax. Then we have the on and off switch, tiny little tactile button right here. That's the front of the unit. On the rear of the unit, we have obviously the USB port, the optical and the coax, dual outputs for balanced XLR and RCA. These voltage adjustable outputs can be set by the jumpers integrated into the back of the unit. This is my first caveat and gripe of this unit. Those being the gain switches, 6 volt, 12, 18, 24 and 30V. The direct line out over to pre are all adjusted here. This unit is a very, very big unit. It's a rack mounted unit. And if you're in a position where you need to go line out to pre-out, as we're using with the Susvara speakers, yes, this review will incorporate IEMs, speakers, headphones, and just a DAC as well. Is the most irksome scenario when you have to give the amp the reach around. I don't care for it. This has already been pointed out to the company too. I'm hoping they would address it. Get rid of the phase switch, use that for the gain. That's the unit, but I think we've discussed the hardware enough. Exceptional internals, full specification scrolling down the screen. Lima red capacitors, the AK4490 REQ with Velvet sound technology chipset. I've not come across this REQ variant, but honestly, if AKM stuck to this sort of sound quality and timbre in their chip, I'm sure obviously the rest of the unit plays a very big role, like the capacitors, the dual mono power supply that's been specially designed for this unit. I think AKM would have a much, much better result because it sounds very natural. Motorized volume pot, a beautiful metal constructed remote control, giving you the ELISA controls and input controls with the motorized volume pot if you're using this as a pre. Let's jump over to the headphones, IEMs and speakers we have tested with this. As you can see, I've taken down a selection of headphones off of the wall for you guys to give you an idea of how this all-in-one performs. From the HiFiMan Susvaras, one of the most demanding headphones in existence next to Tungsten DS. The next one is, I think, the showcase of this review, the Tech dynamic headphone, the Mania. This has been absolutely spectacular and I can't wait to bring you guys the review for that. The next one is DCA Stealth. This one is a very demanding, weird headphone at 20 ohms from memory, and it requires a tremendous amount of current to actually drive well. And then finally, we have the Audma 2024, giving you a nice wide selection. We also obviously have the HD800S over Mania, the Aria Unveiled over Mania, and there are a slew of IEMs on the rack itself. The 2.3 ohm, 112 dB sensitivity, MAD24 and MAD16. The cadenza 12, which is a hybrid, dynamic and BA, and a multitude of others. So I have used a slew of hi-fi equipment for this review. And for the very first time, as you can see behind us, we have the Susvaras. These power speakers in the super flagship category. I think they will set you back 12,000 a pair, roughly. The dual subs have not arrived, so they have exclusively been used in their own environment in this acoustic treated studio without subs. But we will discuss how they performed in that section too. So with that, let's talk about the sound. Starting with this, the HiFiMan Susvara's OG, due to the fact that there is the unveiled now over there. The Audma Maestro HPA1 has replaced a couple of solid-state amplifiers in our studio. Due to the fact this dual mono design amplifier performs like a pair of monoblock power amps for headphones. Some of you will know from our AHB2 dual mono setup years ago that this is an aspect of this hobby that makes headphones, especially hard to drive demanding headphones, perform in a way I think is almost impossible to obtain with standard headphone amplifiers. It gives this intense, visceral openness and attack that, due to the lackluster nature of certain power supplies in the lower tier of headphone amplifiers, just can't keep up. You've got a tremendous amount of voltage on this thing as well, 30 volts. That's quite a lot. Predominantly, most of them tend to tail out at around 15. So for such headphones as the Tungsten DS, this is highly useful. The amplifier sits amongst two of the other best solid-state amplifiers in the industry. That Sale HM1, when you have a hot signal DAC like the Rockner Wave Dream Signature, check out that review here if it's already out. We re-reviewed the unit again already. And the other one being the Mascobo 465. This one I urge you to take with a tiny pinch of salt, because I've only spent a few hours with the unit, twice at CanJam and once here at CMA when we held the CMA Hi-Fi show. That unit is the most colored and lush out of these three. On the other end of the spectrum is the Sale HM1, and Audma HPA1 sits bang in the middle, where that Sale HM1 is, I would say, studio grade and studio level for mixing, mastering and putting the track together. You will come to the Audma Maestro for the music listening aspect. Give the HM1 to the engineer, give the Maestro to the audiophile. It is a black sounding amplifier. By that I mean pitch black background, intense, incisive, punchy mid-bass, extremely fast treble region, very resolving, definitely on the levels of the Mascobo 465 and Sale HM1, which is very hard to do. Organic, and the fact that it's pulling all of this information together with its own DAC, the AK4490 REQ, or REC, depending on how you want to pronounce that, it's all you need. Usually all-in-ones are coveted by those who love a clean aesthetic and are minimalistic, and they don't want this. We've taken it overboard because we have two of those side by side, but that's a work environment. The Audma might be the only unit you will ever need. And the only other, I would say, aspect to this would be something like this. Either electrostatic, this is the WES, Woo Audio. Oh, subscribe here if you want to see that review. It will be coming shortly. I'm actually reviewing the Stax 007 Mark IIs with those. And Shanxinia, I'm going to try and pull back in again, and CRBN2. Or the WA33 JPS Elite. A tube amplifier, basically. For a solid state, you do not need anything else. So Susvaras are punchy, good, texturally informative, excellent sub bass, fantastic all across genres, including electronic music, rock, metal, jazz, classical. The Audma has the biggest stage of any solid-state amp I have ever heard. And that's not implementing the ELISA technology, which we will discuss in a moment. It is the best reproduction of live music in the solid-state category I have come across. And it has surpassed the 465 and the HM1 for me. It's very musical. It will drive IEMs all the way up to the Imanis. Susvaras are a 8.5 out of 10 performer on the Audma. The only thing overtaking this is the $180,000 systems when you start climbing into the Ideon Audio, Rockner Wave Dream Signature, Poseidon for the DAC alone. Then you have things like the WA33 JPS Elite with upgraded tubes, and you're going into a different whole category of performance there. But I will say, it will take you from hi-fi to being absorbed in the music, passing the threshold of uncanny valley. Let's pick up another headphone. The next headphone we're going to pick up is this, the Mania. This is from Urzatech. This is a dynamic headphone, very easy to drive. So you will need to actually drop the voltage gain switch at the back down to basically 0. You don't want plus 6V. Sometimes this adds a little intensity for electronic music, and I don't think it's necessary. Actually, the amplifier sounds a lot cleaner in comparison to the 6 volt or 12 volt if you're using a very sensitive headphone versus a hard to drive headphone. I mean, it's more noticeable, so that most of the time it drives everything fine without having the need to go to 6 volt. But anyway, the Mania. This is a dynamic headphone at 1,100 euros that honestly, I think beats and is on the level of the $3,000 dynamic headphones of like ZMF and some of the others for detail retrieval, for impact, for resolution, for stage. And on the Audma, this thing comes alive better than anything else. This sort of design is basically like the Audeze wishing, the Audeze LCDX wishing that they could actually lose weight and be as light as this. It looks a bit big. It's a bit of a cumbersome headphone, but it doesn't weigh anything. And on the Audma, I think it's had probably 300 hours on it. By the way, the Audma has been here nigh on 9 months or so, so it's a long-term review. It's spectacular. With the introduction of Atrium, for me, that tonality is probably one of my favorites in all headphones, despite of price. And this takes a little Atrium tonality, a little LCD5 ran well tonality. And on the Audma, it scales up incredibly well. We've actually talked about the performance of the amplifier with all of these headphones. And by the way, Dan Clark Stealth, no problems whatsoever. I think I've heard it sound a little more visceral, incidentally, on the Chord Hugo 2 and To Go, and I still don't understand the logic behind that. Honestly, it's kind of ridiculous, but it's exceptional on this, especially for drums, for double bass, for cellos. It's a very reference sound, a very studio sound, and with the textural information and tactility of the Audma, it just gives it a bit more life. So let's pick a couple of songs. I listen to The Voice a lot, especially introducing new artists, and I'll play you a few clips and hopefully YouTube won't destroy us. And if you don't see it in the video, you know we weren't allowed. I like listening to the singers from Norway. They have some of the most talented singers I have ever come across. The visceral nature and tactility and textural information of the voice, so that the emotions come across, is breathtaking. And at the beginning of the video, I stated that Audma is the best reproduction of live music on a solid state I have ever heard. What happens is, when you start implementing the ELISA controls, the central point sits here of the vocalist and never changes place. You are on the stage with the singer, but by changing the angles, everything else around the singer seems to rotate, so you can literally shift the crowd in this manner, like so. the crowd, the ambience of the room that the track is being performed in is at your fingertips to manipulate, stretch, and maneuver so that you can find the best environment for that live reproduction, and the stage just opens up and it's massive. But it does not come across harsh. You don't often get aspects of frequency response. You get aspects of realism. And that is the biggest compliment I can give about this Audma unit. It sounds realistic and it blends into the desk or rack you've put it in, and you really don't think about the equipment anymore. It is a world-class, leading, integrated AMP DAC pre combo. It's all you need. For IEMs, the most sensitive one I have at my disposal at the studio is the Ambient Acoustics MAT 24 at 2.3 ohm and at 112 dB sensitivity. There is a tiny bit of a hiss, but as soon as you start listening, those are crazy units. They sound like headphones. There's nothing about them that states, apart from the fact that they're in your ears rather than on your ears, to indicate they are an IEM. And it's probably the best performance I've ever had out of the MAT 24, unless I go to portable, which is still luxury and precision P6 Pro. Conclusion. Let's go and hug the Audma and talk about the problems and what I finally think. Subjectively, you've been given all the objective performances. Let's get some of the caveats out of the way, which we have discussed throughout this review. One, the unit is very, very big. This is a proper full-size beast mode unit. You need to have the space for it. I stated this is the best all-in-one in the world, overtaking the Chord Dave as my favorite all-in-one for technicality and performance. But the Dave is still a quarter of its size that you can fit into a backpack. With size comes great performance and running coolly and having space for the incredible components inside. But the unit is large. That's one aspect you need to bear in mind. The other aspect for me is the rotating buttons. I would want these to stop where the last menu ends. These are not a difficult situation for you who can see the lights and the corresponding markers for everything. For me, it just rotates and goes in a circle, and it's just a bit irksome. And finally, having the jumpers at the back for voltage change and for the pre and line out is, no, this needs to be changed, and very quickly. That's the one aspect I've had a lot of trouble with, because I do go from line out. I go from line out to pre, etc. And I can't keep reaching around the back of the unit when it's in a rack. It's very difficult to do so, because you will never see what you're doing. Everything is done via feel, and it's just not doable. The jumpers are deeply set as well. They're not flush with the back of the unit. So this is a problem for me. But what are its strengths? Well, its strengths are what I've been talking to you for the last way over the length of this video. Excellent sound, superb performance, no worries about what headphones it can drive and what it doesn't. It's a spectacular unit that deserves a place amongst the very, very best of the solid state category the hi-fi world has to offer. And it comes with a price to match. And yet it undercuts the HM1, the 465, the AIC10 Riviera. Price to performance ratio, 5 tigers out of 5. Sound quality, 5 tigers out of 5. Headphones drivability, 5 tigers out of 5. Ergonomics and functionality, 3 tigers out of 5. Overall score, 4 solid tigers out of 5. Well done, Audma. An outstanding product. I genuinely can't wait to see what happens next from this company if this is their first. And if you like reviews such as these, consider joining Patreon, where you get early access to reviews, get to jump into the private Telegram chat over on the CMA Audio Lounge chat group, get to speak to me and the rest of the community about equipment as they come in for review. Until the next time, I'm Koji CO. Peace.